Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop answering, people stop pretending to care when you go silent? Not out of spite, but out of exhaustion. Suddenly the masks fall. Suddenly their love becomes distant. Their words turn sharp, their tone defensive. You didn't yell, you didn't accuse, you didn't start a war. You simply stopped being available. And the moment you did, everything changed. The one who used to be overlooked became the one they feared. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists, and what you withdraw from dissolves." So what happens when the one they always controlled becomes the one they can no longer reach? What happens when the quiet one walks away? They didn't notice the first signs, the slower replies, the unread messages, the pauses that lasted longer than they used to. You were always quick to reassure, always ready to help, always available. That was your identity, or at least the mask you were taught to wear. But something inside you was breaking. Not loudly, not with tears, quietly, like a glass cracking beneath the surface. The first time you didn't show up when they expected you, they brushed it off. The second time, they asked questions. By the third, they were angry, not because they missed you, but because they missed the version of you who served them. You didn't walk away in rage. You didn't slam doors. You simply stopped explaining. And that's what truly shattered everything. The fact that you left in silence, that you didn't try to fix what they broke, that you didn't beg to stay in a room that always made you feel small. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But the road to that truth begins with a disappearance, one that no one understands but you. At first, you didn't even know what you were doing. You just knew you couldn't keep bleeding quietly. You couldn't keep sacrificing your peace to soothe their discomfort. So you began to pull away, not to punish, but to preserve. You turned off your phone. You skipped the call. You said, "I'm not coming," and you said it without guilt. And slowly, the world around you started to shift. The people who once praised your kindness began to call you cold. Those who said, "You're always there for me," grew hostile when you weren't. But what really bothered them was not your absence. It was your unpredictability. You were no longer reacting on cue. You were no longer emotionally on demand. And that terrified them. Because people who can't control your reaction fear your silence. They fear the stillness they can't decode. And that's when you realized something profound. You were never loved for your soul, only for your service. You were convenient, predictable, readable. But now, unreadable, unresponsive, unavailable. You've become dangerous. You've become the one they can't manage anymore. And that's what they fear most. Not your anger, but your indifference. Not your resistance, but your release. The day you stopped chasing, apologizing, fixing, they were forced to meet themselves. And most of them didn't like what they saw. But what about you? You who used to find your worth in being needed, who mistook attention for affection, who equated usefulness with love. You're standing in unfamiliar territory now. It's quieter, heavier, at times, lonelier. You feel like maybe you've made a mistake. Maybe you were too harsh. Maybe they were right. Maybe you are selfish. But that's the ghost of your old self speaking, the self that lived off of emotional scraps, that feared being misunderstood more than being unhappy. Now, as you sit in the discomfort of your own transformation, something new begins to emerge. A kind of stillness you've never known. A kind of clarity that doesn't shout. It watches, observes, waits. And in that stillness, you hear a voice that had been silenced for years. Your own. It doesn't ask to be liked. It doesn't beg to be kept. It simply says, "I exist, with or without them." And in that moment, for the first time, you belong to yourself. You're not cruel. You're complete. And they don't know what to do with someone who no longer needs their validation. The one who walks away without burning the bridge, but also without turning back, is the one they fear most. Not because you're angry, but because you've outgrown the need to prove anything at all. In the next section, we'll explore what happens inside you after the disappearance, the internal war, the loneliness, the guilt, the echo of old patterns trying to pull you back. You'll see why the pain that follows isn't weakness, it's rebirth. And why sitting in that pain and without reaching for rescue is how you begin to reclaim the most powerful thing they took from you, your inner authority. At first, the silence feels like peace, the kind of peace you begged for while surrounded by noise. Finally, you don't have to explain yourself. Finally, no more forced empathy, no more scanning conversations to find the right version of yourself to offer. It feels like rest, until it doesn't. Because right beneath that stillness, something else rises. Doubt, guilt, grief. Not grief for them, grief for the role you played. The version of you who spent years being strong, understanding, mature. You begin to feel it physically, a weight in your chest, a tightness in your throat. You wonder if you were too harsh, if maybe, just maybe, you could have handled it differently. But that's the conditioning speaking, the part of you that was trained to carry everything without complaint. As Dr. Gabor Mate writes, not every child gets traumatized, but every child gets wounded. That wound, the one that taught you love, is something you must earn, maintain, and never disturb. It reopens now. Withdrawal activates it. Because you're not just distancing yourself from others, you're confronting the deepest question no one dared ask you as a child. What if I stop pleasing? Will I still be loved? This is the part no one prepares you for. The part after the goodbye. The part where your body still expects a message, still waits for the phone to ring, still feels the impulse to explain, even after you've left, even after they've shown you exactly who they are. You feel guilt. Why? Because you were trained to feel guilty for choosing yourself. That's how deep it runs. When you were younger, silence felt like punishment. Disconnection felt like danger. So now, even when you're finally safe, your nervous system screams like you're under attack. You feel torn between peace and panic, between the truth that made you walk away and the stories that beg you to crawl back. This is the emotional withdrawal, the detox. And like any detox, it brings hallucinations. You start to remember only the good things, the laughs, the times they said they loved you. But memory lies when you're in pain. It softens the abuse. It filters out the disrespect. Why? Because the mind wants what's familiar, not what's healthy. And for you, chaos was familiar. Being needed was your comfort. Being drained was your normal. And now, this silence feels foreign, and foreign feels wrong. So you question yourself, even as your soul whispers, keep going. But here's the truth you must burn into your skin. Pain does not mean you made the wrong choice. Guilt does not mean you did harm. And loneliness does not mean you should return. What you're feeling right now isn't failure. It's the breaking of a lifelong pattern. You are finally sitting with emotions you used to outrun by serving others. You are finally feeling the cost of giving too much, too long, to people who gave nothing back. Let it hurt, let it ache, let it strip you bare. Because this is what healing actually looks like. Disappointing people who were never invested in your well-being. Choosing discomfort over betrayal. Letting yourself be misunderstood instead of being misused. It doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to. As Mate teaches, we adapt to survive. But those same adaptations can later become our prisons. And now you're breaking out of the prison of self-abandonment. You're no longer available for guilt-based relationships. You're no longer trying to fix people who hurt you. You're no longer apologizing for your absence. And in this raw, lonely, sacred space, you begin to see it. You were never selfish. You were just tired of being erased. And now that you've stopped performing, you're finally becoming real. In the next section, we'll expose how your emotional generosity, your guilt, your empathy, your loyalty became a resource others exploited. We'll break down the hidden emotional economy you never consented to join and why your energy became their silent addiction. More importantly, we'll show you what happens the moment you stop paying that emotional tax. Because when you protect your energy, you don't just become stronger, you become expensive. There's something you start to realize once you stop reacting. You were never just a good listener. You were an emotional resource, a human fuel station for everyone else's breakdowns, boredom, and instability. The moment you stopped being available, not only did people grow cold, they grew resentful, because you were no longer supplying something they had quietly become addicted to, your energy. Every conversation wasn't just a chat, it was a transaction. Every time you picked up the phone, showed up when exhausted, or listened while your needs were ignored, you were paying a fee, but you never received a receipt. You were giving without realizing what it cost. Marshall Rosenberg, founder of nonviolent communication, once said, "Never do anything to avoid guilt." But that's exactly what you did. You said yes because you were afraid of what no might provoke. You responded out of obligation, not desire. And over time, you became emotionally bankrupt, drained by people who never once asked if you were okay. They didn't need to. They only needed you responsive. As long as you were emotionally available, their needs were met. Yours? Never even considered. Think of how many times you felt uncomfortable but stayed anyway. How many times you gave your presence while quietly disappearing inside. You weren't being generous. You were being harvested. Because in every relationship where your boundaries were ignored, you weren't seen as a person. You were seen as a function, a soft shoulder, a reliable echo chamber, a sponge for other people's pain. And the moment you began to withhold that, the moment you stopped picking up, stopped replying, stopped making yourself accessible, those same people shifted. Some disappeared. Some accused you. Some made it about them. You've changed. You're being weird. I guess you don't care anymore. But none of them asked why you stepped away. None of them said, "Were you okay all that time I leaned on you?" Because they never saw it as leaning. They saw it as entitlement. You were expected to be emotionally present, no matter how absent they were for you. And this is the hidden emotional economy. The system that says if you're kind, you must always be kind. If you're strong, you must always carry. If you're calm, you must never say no. You become a character they cast you in, and any deviation from the script makes you the villain. But what happens when you stop paying, when you stop offering your emotional energy for free? They panic, not because you hurt them, but because you stop serving them. You're no longer profitable, and that's what terrifies them, because now, for the first time, they must confront their own emotions without using yours to process them. You're no longer their mirror. You're no longer their emotional bandage. You're not even angry. You're absent. And in that absence, they are exposed. Their dependence, their projections, their laziness. And here's the brutal truth. Most people didn't love you. They loved how they felt around you. There's a difference. One sees you, the other uses you. But now you're learning something revolutionary. Your energy is not free. Your peace is not public property. Your empathy is not infinite. And withholding it isn't cruelty. It's intelligence. Rosenberg taught that acting from guilt is a form of emotional slavery. But now you act from clarity. You speak when it feels honest. You give when it comes from truth, not fear. You no longer say yes to be safe. You say yes because you want to. That shift, that's how people go from being drained to being dangerous. In the next section, we'll explore what happens when you stop reacting altogether, when you no longer explain, defend, or justify. You'll discover how non-reaction breaks every manipulative game, and how silence, when used consciously, becomes the most disarming power you've ever held. Because the most dangerous person in the room is the one who no longer needs to respond. There's a moment, after the guilt fades, after the silence settles, when you realize something profound. You no longer owe anyone a reaction, not a reply, not an explanation, not a defense. The game collapses the second you refuse to play. And this isn't passive aggression. It's not manipulation. It's clarity. You've spent your entire life explaining yourself, softening your truth, proving your goodness. Why? Because somewhere along the line, you were taught that silence was dangerous, that not responding made you the problem. But now, in your stillness, you realize the pressure to explain was never about peace. It was about control. The moment you stop reacting, they lose access to the buttons they used to push. You used to respond to guilt. You used to explain yourself to avoid being misunderstood. You used to engage with every accusation, every subtle jab, every emotional hook. But now, you watch and you wait. You've created a space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you've reclaimed yourself. As Viktor Frankl wrote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. You finally found the space, and now that you've stepped into it, no one can drag you back. Because when you don't react, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability terrifies people who depend on your patterns. The ones who could always count on your nervous laugh, your immediate reply, your quick apology. Those days are over. Your silence now speaks louder than all the justifications you used to give. You've realized that most people don't want resolution. They want dominance. They don't want truth. They want compliance. And when you stop responding, they have to face something they've avoided for years, themselves. Your silence holds up a mirror, a reflection they can't escape. And this is what makes non-reaction so powerful. You're not punishing them. You're removing yourself as their emotional crutch. And in doing so, you reveal the instability they've buried beneath their noise. Suddenly, they're yelling into an empty room. Suddenly, their accusations echo back unanswered. Suddenly, their manipulation dissolves because the fuel is gone. You, the one who used to explain everything, defend everything, soften every truth, you've gone quiet, and in that quiet, you've become untouchable. Not because you don't feel, but because you've finally chosen what's worth feeling for. But non-reaction isn't about shutting down. It's about refining your power, about no longer reacting to every trigger like it's a command, about no longer letting someone else's chaos pull you from your center. And that center, you had to fight to find it. It didn't come easily. It came through heartbreak, through silence, through withdrawal, through nights you almost messaged them, days you almost caved, but you didn't. You stayed, you sat with the discomfort, you broke the reflex, and now you respond from intention, not impulse. You observe without absorbing, you feel without being ruled. And those who depended on your chaos, they don't know what to do with your calm. Your boundaries are now invisible walls. Your silence is now a boundary. Your refusal to explain is now a sword. You are no longer emotionally accessible to anyone who hasn't earned the right to your energy. And that right, it's expensive now. They call you cold. They call you arrogant. But you know the truth. You're just no longer for sale. You're no longer interested in being understood by people who only showed up when they needed something. And from this stillness, this new emotional terrain, a new version of you is emerging. One who speaks less, one who watches more, one who cannot be baited, bought, or bent. In the next section, we'll step into the darkest part of the journey. What happens when your silence becomes a mirror? When your lack of reaction doesn't just disturb people, it exposes them. You'll see how your emotional withdrawal doesn't only free you, it forces others to confront the very shadows they've spent years projecting onto you. Because the person who no longer reacts becomes the one who reveals. You used to think your silence would protect them, that by not speaking, not confronting, not drawing attention to what they did, you were being kind. But now you see it differently. You see that your silence was never neutral. It was a mirror. And the moment you stopped reacting, people had to face something far more terrifying than your anger, their own reflection. That's the irony. They called you cold for stepping away, for going quiet, for pulling your presence out of the room. But what really disturbed them was not your withdrawal. It was the emptiness they felt in your absence. Because your emotional availability was never just comfort, it was camouflage. It let them hide from their own guilt, their own mess, their own darkness. But now you're no longer absorbing it. And without you, the weight comes crashing down. Alice Miller once wrote, "The true opposite of depression is expression." You were the expression they couldn't face, the mirror that silently reflected everything they denied in themselves. And when you stopped mirroring back their better image, when you no longer reassured them, soothed them, played along, they were left with the raw, unfiltered version of who they are. And they hated it. Some tried to fight it. They provoked you, picked at you, said things they knew would wound you just to see if the old you was still in there, because your silence wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous to their illusion. They needed you reactive. They needed you to lose composure. That way they could still feel morally superior, still believe that you were the unstable one, but your stillness became unbearable. They looked at you and saw their manipulation no longer working, their passive aggression no longer landing, their guilt trips floating in empty air. And that kind of exposure, it's a threat, not just to them, but to the entire identity they built around control. Because your refusal to play the emotional game forced them to sit in their own discomfort. And this is where you see the separation, the split between people who take accountability and those who only seek comfort. One will sit with what they see in the mirror, the other will smash it. And you're no longer afraid of either, because you've stopped living in response to their image. You've stopped shaping yourself to make them feel like good people. You no longer participate in their self-deception. But that doesn't mean it's easy. Becoming the mirror means walking alone. It means enduring the backlash, being painted as heartless, distant, selfish, all because you stopped lying for them. It's the price of truth. But here's what you discover in the silence they tried to shame you for. Peace. Not the fragile peace you used to chase, the kind that required self-betrayal to maintain, but a deep, unmoving kind of peace. The kind that comes from no longer needing to be liked by those who never truly saw you. You don't reflect anymore. You radiate. You don't absorb their chaos. You watch it pass. And this terrifies them more than anything, because people who are used to controlling others with guilt, shame, or confusion fall apart when their mirror stops speaking. You were never the cause of their chaos. You were just the one who used to clean it up. Now you let it burn, and you walk away, not with rage, not with revenge, but with radical detachment. You've become someone they cannot use, cannot sway, cannot predict. And in doing so, you've become someone else entirely, a presence that no longer reflects, but reveals. In the next section, we'll step into the sacred solitude that follows. You'll see why true transformation doesn't happen in front of an audience, but in the quiet, echoing hours when you belong to no one but yourself. Because in isolation, something divine begins to grow. Not the need to be understood, but the strength to live without it. After the mirror breaks, there's nothing left but you. No noise, no roles, no reflection to maintain, just silence. Heavy, unfiltered, untouchable silence. And for the first time, it doesn't feel like loneliness. It feels like liberation. You're no longer defined by how others see you. You're not constantly adjusting yourself to avoid discomfort. You're not performing anymore. There's no one to impress, no one to soothe, no one to prove anything to. It's quiet, almost too quiet. But within that silence, something sacred begins to grow. A self untouched by performance. A soul that no longer whispers, "Am I too much?" A body that no longer flinches when it says no. This isolation isn't punishment, it's passage. You've walked through fire, torn down the old scaffolding, and now you're standing in the rubble, raw, real, and unafraid. And it's here, in this space of absolute solitude, that you start to understand the words of Erich Fromm. To be able to be alone is the condition for the ability to love. Because now that you're no longer dependent on connection, your love for yourself and for others can finally be real. You begin to notice things others never slowed down enough to see. The way your breath moves in the early morning. The way your energy shifts when you say no without guilt. The peace in your chest after a full day without justifying your existence. You're not proving anything to anyone anymore. There's no more craving for someone to validate your pain, no more hoping they'll finally understand. That need has been burned out of you, not by hate, but by clarity. You now understand that healing isn't about finding people who treat you better. It's about becoming someone who no longer settles for being treated worse. And that kind of transformation requires isolation, not physical isolation necessarily, but energetic detachment, a space where no one else's noise can drown out your knowing. You stop posting for attention. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop entertaining the people who once felt magnetic but now feel draining. You stop everything that was once done from lack, from fear, from the belief that being chosen equals being loved. Now, you choose yourself, without applause, without permission, without shame. And yes, it's quiet here, sometimes unbearably so, but it's also clean, peaceful, spacious. No more emotional transactions. No more holding your breath, waiting for someone to choose you. You've chosen you, fully, completely. And with that choice comes a new rhythm, slower, deeper, more sovereign. You walk into rooms without explaining your silence. You leave situations without overthinking your exit. You're no longer addicted to being misunderstood, because you finally realize being understood was never the goal. Being whole was. Sacred isolation strips away everything you thought you needed and shows you what you were always made of. You no longer chase, you no longer beg, you don't retaliate, you don't plead, you just disappear from the spaces where your soul was being starved. And in doing so, you become rare, not mysterious, not dramatic, just unreachable to the people who once consumed you so easily. You've become the kind of presence that doesn't compete, doesn't explain, doesn't return. Not out of bitterness, but out of deep, divine self-possession. You are no longer in exile, you are in protection. And from here, you begin to rebuild. In the final section, we'll witness the return, not to them, but to yourself. You'll see how sacred isolation leads to inner rebirth, and why the person you're becoming is not someone they'll recognize, but someone they'll never forget. Because the one who walks away in silence returns as someone they can never touch again. You don't come back the same. You don't return softer. You don't return explainable. You return quieter, sharper, slower, with eyes that don't search anymore, with a voice that doesn't rush to fill silence. You carry something now, something rare, something unspoken. It's not anger, it's not bitterness, it's sovereignty, a deep, grounded selfhood that doesn't bend to noise or validation. You don't chase peace anymore, you are the peace. And that terrifies them, because they remember the version of you who bent, who begged, who tried to be understood. But this version, you're not asking to be seen, you're not waiting to be received. You're not offering your softness as a test of their worth. You've reclaimed the parts of you they thought they owned, and you don't deliver monologues when you walk into a room now. You deliver silence, presence, absence of need. And that absence, it's the loudest thing in the room, because people can feel when someone has nothing left to prove, nothing left to chase, nothing left to give that hasn't been earned, and suddenly they remember. They lost you. Not because you vanished, but because they assumed you'd always return. But this version of you doesn't return to be reclaimed. You return to observe, to choose, to discern. You sit at the edge of conversations that once pulled you in, and you don't feel the urge to participate. You watch the same patterns that once triggered you, and you remain unmoved. You hear the familiar tone of manipulation, and you don't flinch, because now you see it clearly. None of it was personal. Their treatment of you had nothing to do with your worth, only their limits. Their reactions weren't truth. They were defense, projection, emotional immaturity masquerading as strength. And now that you've stepped out of the storm, you see the architecture of it all. The cycle, the scripts, the roles you used to play, and you no longer fit. Not because you've become arrogant, but because you've become awake. As James Hollis writes, the goal of life is not happiness. The goal is meaning. And meaning always demands growth, discomfort, and loss. And you, You've lived the loss, you've endured the discomfort, and now meaning has taken root in you. Quiet, unshakable, you no longer live to be liked, you live to be aligned. So now, when they look at you, they don't recognize what they see. They feel it, but they can't name it. It's not revenge, it's not drama, it's the soft, cold glow of someone who cannot be accessed without intention. You don't react, you don't explain, you don't perform, you don't apologize for your solitude. You wear it like armor. You walk like someone who remembers who they are, like someone who isn't afraid to lose people who were never truly with them. Your standards are quiet now, but brutal. You don't demand better. You simply vanish when better isn't present. You don't argue with disrespect. You let your absence become the consequence. You don't lecture people on how to treat you. You just stop offering your presence as a reward for their bare minimum. You've become unreachable, not because you built walls, but because you grew roots. And people who are rooted in themselves don't beg to be watered by anyone. You are no longer reactive. You are reflective. And the world will feel the loss of the version of you they once had easy access to. But that version is gone. Not hidden, not suppressed. Gone. And the one who walked away quietly returns as someone they will never hold again. If this spoke to the version of you no one ever protected, then share it. Let someone else feel seen in their silence. And if you're ready to keep walking this path, hit like, subscribe, and never look back.